Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Welcome if you're new. I'm Stacy and tonight we are going to paint a kind of a sunset. It could be a sunrise over water with a foreground of dark tree and grasses. A little bit of mountains in the background with reflections in the water, and might put some birds in the sky. I'm going to start by putting a little bit of neutral tint in with my purple, because this is dioxazine purple and neutral tint to make that kind of a gray purple for our sky situation. And I think I'm going to do a little wet and wet action. Let's get some clean water, cleanish. I would like a splash, just a dose of yellow. This is Azo and Gamboge mixed together. This time a little more Azo than Gamboge. Get a clean water and drop it in. Well, cleanish. Drop in that sky right over the tree, because the tree in the foreground is going to be nice and dark, ideally, when we're all done. Just wet that whole page. And this is Arch's smooth paper, which I've only done one other painting on. So yeah. Let's just, I want a little yellow glow right here. Not a lot, just a hint. And then more so right through here on our mountains. And then down here on the water. Just bounce that across all the way, because we're going to put dark over light, which is generally how you work with watercolor. And working with mostly yellow. This right here is a mixture of almost all my reds. I have, what do I have over here? Primary alizarin, pyrrole red, quinacridone red, and quin rose. Quin rose is my favorite color of red to put in skies. So I'm gonna do just a little glow of quin rose over here and right there, and then maybe just a touch up a little higher. Just let it bleed around. I dig that. And then maybe down here in the water, a little more water. And we let that fade. Let it fade. There. And now I'm going to put in my gray purple, really wet here and there, because we can go over it later and drop in dark color once it's dry. I'm going to do that. Now I did do a tracing of this basic drawing for you guys. I will do it nice and dark and scan it so that you can get the basic line art down to paint over, really light with pencil. I think a little bit of ultramarine and with our purple would be really pretty. Like that. Because I'm going to go over this with a tissue and blot as well. So maybe a little brightness won't hurt too much. A little bit dark down on that, where that grass is going to be down here. It's not going to be, it's going to be very prominent against the water. So let's get some indications of water going there. Okay, I'm going to grab a tissue. I'm going to blot the edges of this area. So I want my glow to be pretty. A, free of hard lines, and B, wispy. And like I said, we can go over this again with darker colors if we want and make it more prominent, or we can leave it soft and glowy like this. I'm kind of digging the soft glow. I'm going to switch to my smaller brush. I'm once again using my Princeton Neptune round 8 and 18. These are my two favorite brushes for my watercolor paintings. A little bit of ultramarine, touch of neutral tint to gray it out a little bit. And I think I'd like it to be kind of cloud-like right here. And while it's still wet, it will disperse a bit, which is a nice effect. And just kind of touch the tip of the brush here and there, make some wispies. Let them, and this is, I'm working pretty quick while the paper is pretty damp. And ultramarine is granulating a little bit, so it will look a little textured, which I don't mind. And I am kind of super digging it right now, all this bleeding of color. And you can make your clouds any shape you want, really. They can be wispy, they can be poofy. Back here in the background, maybe smaller, because that's distant. And we don't want to get too carried away with the length of our clouds. And drag it up a bit. Touch more ultramarine, touch more neutral tint. Too much neutral tint, go with more ultramarine. Lots of water to thin it way, way out. Lots and lots of water. There we go. Clean that brush. Just a dab of color. And get those clouds going in there the way you want them to. And if you want a little more color in certain areas, a little depth, drop in more color here and there. And let it bleed around, see how it looks a little stormy. That's kind of cool, right? I dig it. Don't forget about your paper towel to soften, to drag things around, to make textures. Maybe almost dry brush. And get some. This is a smooth paper, remember, so there's not a lot of texture going on. Drag it up like that. Get some wisps going in our sky. Like that. How's that look? Oh, pretty cool. I dig it. This corner here I want to address. I want to put some little bit of color over here. Do droplets into that. And then I want kind of a bigger cloud behind that tree. There we go. And let's see. Do I want to do much more to that sky? I don't think so. Kind of digging how it looks. And it's starting to dry, so it's not going to get as spread out and wispy. I would like to put a touch more of my Quin Rose. Quin Rose, lots of water to lighten it, keep it super light. And come in here and just here and there, touch it in, and dab, dab. See how it makes a little bright spot, which I am digging. And maybe that. Kind of drag it out a bit. Wisp it out. Wisp it in. Then over here, I can get a little more wisps going on. Drag your color on, and then lightly with the paper towel, just grazing it across the top to make textures. And it's very subtle, and it's going to dry a lot lighter than it looks right now. So if you want, you can come back in and put in more color later. You can put in more color now too if you really, really want to. I want a little more purple. Dioxazine and neutral tint, just like gray it out a bit. And I want it to be a little over here. Like that. And touch right there. Like that. Yeah, I dig that. And clouds are very organic. Don't be afraid to play with the cloud shapes and make them what you want them to be. Maybe along the bottom of there. Pull that down. One of those days when the sky just looks wild, right? Alright, then I'm going to take some of this gray purple and I want to make my horizon line. Now you can put down a piece of tape if you want this to be crisp. I'm not too worried about it because we're going to do a layer of dark color over those mountains, and we're going to put in that tree. So, there. Get our reflection going. Basic mountainy shapes. Kind of wisping because this is water. Drag that almost dry brush back and forth. Doesn't have to be a perfect reflection, just the idea of it is more than enough. Okay, and then, oh, that was my chair, sorry. I'm going to put it a little over here, like that, drag it in, like so. Nice. I dig it. I'm going to put some on the very bottom of this, a wiggly blue-gray where the grasses are, just to keep things uniform, to help there be cohesive balance in the piece. And our tree, which is up this side and that corner. And we'll come back over the tree and like redefine, but first we're going to put in our mountains. I'm going to use dioxazine, touch of neutral, lots of water, make it thin because you want to wash. You don't want to, I'm going to put a little bit of ultramarine in there as well. All three colors really make this a very interesting color for our mountains. I'm going to rinse the brush real good, maybe put a little wetness on the tops of these guys. Like that. And then drop in the color along the edges and let it feather down and do what it wants to do. And a little feathering up isn't bad either, it gives it interesting shapes. Just drop it along the edge. Where you want it a little darker, drop a little more water, a little more paint color. Because this is going to dry lighter, remember. Like that. And if you let it bleed down a bit, you'll naturally get a little bit of a fog look going on. I'll paint across that line again. I'm going to clean my brush, mostly clean water, and kind of soften these edges. I'm probably going to go over this with another layer of dark. And take your tissue, where you want it to be more foggy, more misty, just gently dab your color, like you're doing the clouds. If you've ever done just a wash of clouds, and then dabbed out your, or a wash of blue on your sky and then dabbed out your clouds. That's essentially what we're doing right there. Make it a little misty right there. That's nice, right? Maybe right here, make it a little touch mistier. There. A suggestion more than a definitive hard line, which is really pretty to me right now. And where you want a little more darkness, just drop in a touch more paint and water here and there. Not everywhere, remember, we're not trying to create completely definitive mountain line back there. I'd like it to be a little misty, a little moody, like that. Isn't that pretty? Now with that same color, do our foreground, which can be a little more defined right here. And then do a little shadow shape in the water. And then maybe a little more definitive shape over here, right there, and then some shadow shapes in the water. Slightly darker, see, isn't that nice? And then maybe the top of that mountain, we get a little more dark shadow down here and over here on our water. Okay, I had to put a fresh battery in the camera. I'm just going to let this whole thing be soft back here. I'm not really wanting it to be super defined, and if you want like hints of more distant possible clouds or mountains or hills, you can throw that in right now, like that. And then let's see, another layer of dark purpley stuff going on in this grassy foreground right here. Just along the bottom edge, leave a little layer of lightness at the top, because it is a little glowy up there, so it doesn't need to be completely covered. And then maybe some more water, thin that way out, and drag it around like so. Take your tissue and make some textures. There. And don't be afraid to play a little bit with it. Alright, I'm going to put in a dark line, not dark, not super dark, but more definitive line along that horizon. Once again, kind of a lot of water, because we can go over it more than once, so it does not need to be super dark. And I'm going to gently drag that line across, and do it again. I'm going to take a touch of neutral tint mixed with that blue. Drag that in there. Get a oomph, a little interest. Yeah, that's nice. There's our bold. That's pretty much the only bold thing I want back there. Maybe it can bleed up a bit into here, and up into here, and up into there. And that's good, yeah? I'm totally digging this so far. Alright, let's see. Now, what I'm afraid is going to ruin this painting. Kind of digging the hard lines that I have over here in the clouds. I think that's nice. It's really nice. And the bloom I got over here, kind of digging that as well. And that yellow glow. Usually that is so hard for me to get and keep. I'm learning though. I am learning. Alright, I'm going to put a little bit of this. I'm going to turn the page so that I can get skip lines, like little skip lines like that. See where the water glows and then it doesn't. Even drier. Kind of drag that out. Maybe blot that a bit. Gentle little, so that it looks like there's a little bit of a surface to that water, right? Doesn't need to be perfect or completely uniform at all. I'm going to drag it across the shiny part. Almost completely dry brush at this point. And just touch it. Drag that way a bit. How's that look? I dig that a little bit more. I want some more shadow over here a little bit. This to be a little less glowy right here. Okay. How's that? Yeah, I dig that. Okay. Whew. Anybody else really digging this? I'm liking the softness of it, which I usually have a hard time with. I put in too much color. I rush, and I don't let the paper and the paint play. I'm really enjoying the smooth paper, I think, though, a lot. I'm gonna grab blue. Drag it across there. Soften that part right there. Yeah, I like it. Alright. I'm gonna let that dry and work on the tree and over the sky, because, yeah, this is dry now. Dry enough anyways. I'm not picking up any paint. I'm gonna let, this is pretty wet right here in the middle and on the bottom. This smooth Arches paper is drying really fast. Not complaining, I'm just observing. I'm gonna use more of a heavy, inkier mixture of the three colors. Once again, ultramarine, blue, dioxazine purple, and neutral tint. And these are all three M-gram colors. So, if your colors don't look exactly like mine, or you're worried about your painting not glowing, or, you know, reflecting exactly as mine does, computer screens make a huge difference. The light will look different to you than it does to me. But go with what you've got, you know. I'll put the reference photo in the comments, or in the description below, so that you guys can use it for your colors or general description of what you're doing. Now the tree I did not draw exactly so, you know, because, well, it's a tree. And it's a silhouetted tree at that, so it doesn't have to be, like, perfect. I mean, you definitely want it to look tree-like, right? But does not need to be a perfect exact representation of the drawing, or of the reference photo rather. So I get the general shape and direction of most of the bigger branches in. And I purposely drew them wobbly and wiggly and a little more free so that it's not so exacting and it's more of a relaxing painting session. I wasn't really looking forward to a tense session this time around. Not tense necessarily, but exacting, I guess, is better. I was really wanting to practice skies, honestly, because I feel like I'm lacking in that one, you know? I feel like I need the practice. Let that be dark down there. And then I'm gonna drag it in these branches over the water. And it doesn't, like, that water's still wet, so we can come back and redefine where we need to later. If you want, you can take a heat tool to the sections that aren't quite dry or dry enough to work over. I'm really wanting a free flowy kind of piece. Wasn't worried about the tree being terribly exact. I just want it to be tree-esque against that sky. I do have a smaller brush I'm going to switch to. This is a number 4, I think. Yeah, it's a 4. It's got a lot of snap. It's fairly firm and it's got a decent point. So if you have a brush that's fairly firm and has a decent point to it, go ahead and grab that sucker to do your finer lines. I'm going to scoot this way a little bit so that I can get in here. And the brush is pretty dry. I'm just kind of dragging it around the very tips of it to get that many branches look. I'm going to do a little bit more water than that. This is pretty inky right here. It's not moving around a lot on the palette. You can see my scribble lines in it. That's the kind of thickness that you want right now for your smaller, detail-y, wispy branches and textures for the background, or for the smaller branches on your tree in your foreground. This is not the background. What am I thinking? Alright. And you can take your time doing this. You can go really slow. You can be very exacting with how your tree and your branches look. Whatever details you enjoy making the most, whatever lines make you happy, do those. Alright, and then, because I could totally get lost in these details on this tree for hours, getting all the little nuances of what one's behind and what one's in front, and the overlap and the little wisps and stuff. Put down a globule, tap it with your finger, get some on your finger. Don't be afraid to make textures. You could even use your tissue. That's actually not a bad idea. To make bolder, bigger, more branch. See how it makes it look like there's lots going on. Go ahead and mix up more ultramarine, dioxazine purple, and neutral tints. A little bit of water. Make it still pretty inky. a little thick. You can still see the brush marks, but they go away. Take your tissue, wad it up, dab it in, and pat your paper quickly. And that paper towel is just going to absorb that. You can also use a sponge. I have tons of sponges. I don't know why I'm not doing that. Laziness mostly. I don't feel like grabbing them out. See, that dropped in that tree pretty quick. I dig it. Maybe a little bit of pink here and there for glow. Why not? I'm going to mix up quite a bit for the last little dab. Water. I don't want the tree to be like the focal point. I want it to be a suggestion and an idea. In the reference photo, the tree is very, very, very prominent in the piece. It is a strong, what do they call it? The word's gonna elude me. A silhouette in the piece, but I don't want it to be a super strong silhouette. I don't want it to overpower. I want my sky to be the focal point. Okay, I'm going to stop messing with that. Make a couple of my branches a little more solid shaped and branchy. I don't know what that means, but there you go. There's a lot going on this tree, so it's hard to tell what's where, what's going with what, how things are flowing. So you can make abstract shapes and lines. It does not have to be perfect or make complete sense. Because when you look at a tree, and I've made this mistake many times, this summer actually, this past summer, I was at the park and there was this beautiful, enormous tree, and I was trying to get every branch and every shadow and every nook and cranny, and I was just frustrated because I couldn't get it. I was just trying for too much, you know. So, yeah. Maybe some wiggly marks for bunched branches. That's effective, right? And there. What else do I want to do here? Not much else. I don't like the tip of this branch right here. It's bugging me. Well, yeah, I'm going to stop fussing with the tree because I feel like if I do too much more to it, I'm going to mess it all up. I'm going to make this a little darker though. My trunk could be just a bit darker on that edge there. And then bleeding down. Good. Yeah, I dig that. I'm gonna leave it alone. Alright, now I'm going to use the same mixture and do this little bit of grass down here. We're almost done. You probably can tell that already. Touch more neutral tint in there. And then, no. Just flick up, not a lot, just here and there. Some wispy suggestions of grass, maybe the occasional bent over. See? Pretty, right? And you can use the side of your brush and make bigger textures from the dark, 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 dark down here. Yeah, darken that edge. And then drag it up. Make sure it's not too uniform. And I'm digging that. It can be lighter as it goes across the page if you want it to. The further it gets away from the tree, it can be lighter. There's not as much hovering over, right? There. And then we can go in and get a few wispy suggestions and not so wispy suggestions of grass, some long weeds. Now the reference photo, the grasses and stuff are super uniform, but if you've ever been to the edge of a pond or a lake and you've seen the reeds and grasses, they are not uniform at all. They're very haphazard and crazy looking. You can go ahead and do whatever you want. If you want yours to be uniform and more graphic in your design, that's awesome. Do that. Make a few going in all the directions, like so. And maybe a couple actual thin, more definitive lines. Like that. Okay, I'm just about finished. There. That's good for my grasses. If there's a part that is too uniform or doesn't look quite right, you can slam your brush down and kind of wiggle it and make more textures. Whatever you like. Alright, now that this is dry right through here, I'm going to create that ruler. Where'd that ruler go? It's right here. I'm going to put it at the edge of my water like that. Pressing it down. Just touch water. Okay. Tip of my brush, and I just want to graze it along that edge like that. Exactly perfect. I dig it. Doesn't need to be super solid line. It doesn't need to be super definitive. If you want, you can get in here and make some more water lines. Just depends on your piece how much detail you want to put in it, right? How crazy you want to get with all the reflections The textures. And watermarks. Like that. Are we good? I don't know about you guys, but I'm digging it. Alright, I'm going to take this same color and I'm going to drop in some birds. Birds can be, alright, the hot tip with birds is to make them not look like a bird. Just a little blob and a couple lines. They don't have to be uniform. They can be going in all the directions. Like that. See? I'm going to zoom in. You can see my birds. Pull this down a skosh. Maybe they're coming from behind the tree. So we can put a couple super close to the tree. Maybe put one here. And then these guys can be coming up. And remember, they're flapping at different rates. They're not all flying in the same direction. They don't all have great heading or bearing on where we're going. Where are we going, you guys? Yeah. And you can do a lot of birds. You can do a couple birds. You can do some small dots. So it looks like some of them are pretty far back. If you don't like that, just fix it. Grab a little more water. If you like them to be a little more bold, a little more silhouetted, do that. Maybe there's a couple overlapping. Maybe there's a couple overlapping like this. Super close together. Like I said, many and as few as you want. Make them go in a couple different directions, different angles. And there we go. We have a flock of birds. And I'm going to put a little bit more darkness on some of them that are in the bright sun. Like that. Good. How's that? Yeah, there we go. Okay, I'm gonna stop there because I dig how it looks. Anybody else enjoy this one? I really feel like it turned out pretty cool. Let's tear it off. And this is not on a block, so I'm pretty impressed with how the smooth paper didn't buckle as much as the rough does. The rough buckles hardcore, and then the 140-pound cold press. This is hot press. It hardly buckled at all. It just bowed a little bit on the edges. And I used kind of a lot of water on this. There's our close-up of the mountains in the water. And you can make your mountains more defined if you want to. And your reflections, you can make this really intense. You can use different colors. I was digging the purple and the pink and the... I've been stuck on blue. I've been stuck on blue lately, and I don't know what that's about, but in an attempt to mix it up a little bit, I threw in some purple and yellow and pink. And Easter's soon, so this is kind of an Eastery one. I like it. Alright, thank you so much for painting along. Thank you for watching. If all you did was watch, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!